Recently, we discussed the new concept called mankeeping. It's a new concept that really is just a new and quite stupid term for a very old concept. It's the concept that women in a romantic relationship should care for and about the men that they are in a relationship with. And for as long as human relationships have existed, this has always been a feature of them. Indeed, caring for and about the other person isn't just a feature of a relationship, it is the relationship. But in our self-centered, misandrist, feminist dystopia, women caring for and about their own husbands is considered controversial. It is no longer the very essence of the relationship itself, but a sign that somehow the relationship has gone wrong. If you're a woman in a relationship and you find that your relationship feels like a relationship, then that is unfair to you. You are the victim of man-keeping. Over the weekend, Vice tweeted this caption along with a link to an article about man-keeping. And the caption says, quote, "Managing his stress, interpreting his moods, holding his hand through feelings he won't share with anybody else, all of it unpaid, unacknowledged, and often unreciprocated. Is it any wonder women are fed up?" Yes, interpreting moods, listening to them talk about their feelings, dealing with their stress. Well, it's a good thing men never have to do any of that for women. Women, of course, are famously stoic and reserved about their emotions. So men don't have to deal with this. I wish I had $1 for every time a male friend has said to me, "Man, I wish my wife would just open up about her feelings a little bit more. She never tells me how she feels. And her mood never fluctuates either. Just stone cold, totally even keel all the time." I've heard that from so many men, and by so many, I mean none ever at any point. Because, of course, men have done this for the women in their lives every day, all day, since the dawn of humanity itself. Yet the term woman-keeping was never coined, and if it had been, it would have been condemned as horrific sexism by precisely all of the women who are now using the term man-keeping. This double standard has not occurred to them, or if it has, they don't care. Vice explains, quote, "Researchers at Stanford have finally given a name to something many women have been dealing with for years. It's called man-keeping, and it's helping explain why so many women are stepping away from dating altogether. Man-keeping describes the emotional labor women end up doing in heterosexual relationships. It goes beyond remembering birthdays or coordinating social plans. It means being your partner's one-man support system, managing his stress, interpreting his moods, holding his hand through feelings he won't share with anybody else, all of it unpaid, unacknowledged, and often unreciprocated." Now, you notice there, and just a side note, you notice how the word unpaid so often comes up in these feminist lamentations about the alleged unfairness of heterosexual relationships. But many times when we talk about this sort of thing in the Daily Cancellation, that word comes up, unpaid. Now, a sane person who does not suffer from a psychotic level of bitterness and narcissism would not even think to complain that the emotional support they offer to their spouse or their girlfriend or boyfriend is unpaid. Even at their most selfish, their most self-pitying, the thought, "I can't believe my spouse isn't paying me to care about them," wouldn't cross their mind. And if their spouse did offer such a payment, they would be shocked and appalled and most of all, really confused. I'm trying to imagine how my wife would react if I had a heart-to-heart talk with her. And then after our conversation, as it concluded, I said, "So what's your hourly rate? Is it $100? Is that fair? Here you go." Now, she might laugh, but more likely she would probably cry because she would realize that I'd finally lost my mind. The point is that this unpaid labor thing, when applied to marriages and parenting, which is the other context where feminists often use the term, is total insanity. And it also reveals perhaps the deepest truth about the left-wing feminist, which is that, just to be totally frank about this, the left-wing feminist aspires to nothing so much as to be a whore. She wants her husband to pay her for paying attention to him. She wants to be a prostitute. Now, with OnlyFans, many of them actually do become prostitutes. The rest of them choose other careers, perhaps because they've decided, rightly in many cases, that they're not physically attractive enough to prostitute themselves in the most literal sense. But prostitution, in some form or another, remains the great dream of every liberal feminist. Here's a little more from the article, quote, "The root of the issue is tied to what experts are calling the male loneliness epidemic. As more men report having fewer close friendships, romantic partners are expected to pick up the slack. Instead of processing with friends, many men offload everything onto the women they're dating. She becomes his entire emotional infrastructure. Plenty of women are no longer interested in that dynamic. According to Pew Research, only 38% of single women in the U.S. are currently looking for a relationship. Among single men, that number jumps to 61%. The gap says a lot. Women aren't opting out of love, they're opting out of being someone's therapist with benefits. The Guardian calls mankeeping a modern extension of emotional labor, one that turns a partner into a life coach. This isn't about avoiding vulnerability, it's about refusing to carry someone else's emotional weight while getting little to nothing in return. And there's nothing wrong with feeling that way. Well, actually, there is. There's a lot wrong with feeling that way. And look, the last time we talked about this man-keeping nonsense, we established, as we have again in this segment, that the women who use the term or complain in any way about having to show the slightest concern for the men they chose to marry or even to date are selfish, horrible cretins. And that is the primary and most obvious takeaway. From any story like this, the first takeaway and the first one that most people go to, rightly so, is, oh, well, feminism is terrible. Because it is. Feminism has made women, not all women, but the women in its grasp, into selfish, entitled, resentful, greedy egomaniacs who demand financial compensation for performing their wifely and motherly duties. So that is the most important point. But there is something else going on here that I don't think we really got into the first time we talked about this. Women are also complaining more about men being emotionally vulnerable because a lot more men are emotionally vulnerable. For many decades, men have been encouraged, not just encouraged, but harangued, nagged to soften and open up and be more honest about how they feel. And this has been going on for a long time. It was always a trap. And there were a lot of us who were saying, this is a trap, guys, don't fall for it. And unfortunately, a lot of men didn't listen to us and they've fallen into it. It's undoubtedly true that all of the women complaining about man-keeping are despicable feminist harpies, but this is also undoubtedly true. No woman on the planet actually wants her husband to be as emotionally vulnerable with her as she is with him. And so there is a double standard here, and I'm not talking about the feminist double standard. I mean, there's another deeper double standard that is hardwired. It's ingrained into us biologically. Any woman whose husband leans on her emotionally to the same degree and in the same way that she leans on him will feel exhausted and overwhelmed and ultimately resentful because of it. And that's not her fault. It's nature. Men and women are different. Okay, this is the revelation that we always come back to. Men and women are actually different. A woman with an overly sensitive and emotionally frail husband will feel like she's carrying a disproportionate amount of the emotional weight in the marriage, when in fact it's technically equal weight. Right? It's so he's doing with her what she does with him, so technically it's equal. She's not going to feel like that. She's going to feel like she's carrying way more of it. For the same reason that, if I ask my wife to help me move a couch downstairs, she will strain under the weight of the couch much more than I will. It will feel like an unequal burden, even though we're both carrying the same amount of weight. The difference is that I'm a man. I was built to move couches. She was not. And so it's harder for her. And that's not because she's selfish or flawed in some way. It's not her fault. She's just different. She's a woman. It's harder for her to move the couch. And emotional weight is the same sort of thing. If your wife unloads all of her fears and anxieties onto you and you unload all of yours onto her, she will feel like she's carrying an undue amount of the burden, even though it's equal. But it's not really equal because, again, she's a woman and you're a man. You're supposed to carry an unequal amount of the fear and worry. You're supposed to. You're built for that as a man. You're not supposed to go home and tell your wife about every last thing you're worried about and stressed about. There are supposed to be things that you just keep to yourself and you carry as a man. That's what men are supposed to. That's what men have always done. That's what women expect men to do. Even if they won't say it because they feel bad saying it, or they don't even know that even if they don't at this point know that they want that, because their minds are so frayed by feminism. It's biological. Now, I've used this example a few times because I think it illustrates the point effectively. Because anytime I say this, there's always people objecting, of course. So, well, how could you say that men are supposed to, men should open up, and why can't they open up and say, be honest about how they feel? Well, here's the example I think kind of illustrates this. If you're a married man, you have probably seen your wife cry. You've probably seen her cry many times in general, but you've probably seen times when she's cried because she had a stressful day. And I don't mean that it's because anything traumatic occurred to her. We're not talking about that. Okay, trauma is one thing. But I mean, let's say she just had a stressful day. Like nothing really terrible happened. It's just a stressful day. And there's nothing unusual about this, right? And as the husband, it's not difficult for you to deal with. She wants to be comforted, so you comfort her. She's looking for someone who's, she just wants you to be a solid, presence and a strong presence. And so she's just kind of offloading the stress that she has. All of that is normal. Now, on the flip side, we all understand on a visceral level that it would be bizarre and upsetting for your wife if you came home from work and started crying over the stress that you're feeling. And not because something actually traumatic happened. I don't mean that, okay, you're a cop and there was something horrible and someone died and, we're not talking about that. I just mean you had a tough day at the office, like normal stress. Okay, if you came home and started and you were crying and your wife said, what's wrong? I just had a really hard day. It's just a tough day. There's a lot going on. And you're just sobbing on your couch in front of your wife and your children. I think we all understand viscerally that you shouldn't do that as a man. Well, are you saying it's okay for a woman to do, but not a man? Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. And this display of weakness and emotional dysregulation will be a burden on your wife in a way that the same scene in the reverse would not be for you. Why? Well, again, men and women are different. We've reached the middle of November and the holiday season is just around the corner. All the Christmas chaos can mean it's hard to find peace amidst the cookies, wrapping paper, and half-packed suitcases that litter your front entryway. So this year, take a breath and lean into the stillness of the Advent season. Thankfully, my friends at Hallow have designed a challenge that's impactful and perfect for a busy holiday season. This Advent, you'll dive into the real story of Christmas, come to understand that it was probably just as chaotic as our own, and learn to surrender it all to God anyway and find real peace. Throughout Hallow's Advent Challenge, Pray 25, Be Still, you'll have the opportunity to meditate on the words of Psalm 46, Be still and know that I am God, and your powerful excerpts from the Read of God and the ruthless elimination of hurry. Experience the stillness of the Holy Family amidst the chaos and busyness of the world, and dive into the story of the Nativity. Get 3 months free at Hallow today Get 3 months free of Hallow today at hallow.com/Matt Walsh and prepare yourself for your most peaceful Christmas season yet. And this is one of the reasons why the 50-50 approach doesn't work in a marriage. There is no way to judge what constitutes 50% of the work in a marriage because all of the work is weighted differently depending on whether a man or woman is doing it. And I'm certainly not saying that all of the hard tasks in a marriage or in a family are easier for men. Sometimes it goes the other way. Right? For example, my wife is very good, as wives should be, at managing the house. And that means like keeping everything clean and orderly, making sure the kids are fed, schedules are kept, everyone gets where they need to go, and we got 6 kids, everyone's going to a million different places, and they're all wearing the appropriate attire for whatever thing they're going to be going to, and just everything, et cetera, right? She's much better at that than I am. And if we were to split that task 50-50, maybe one week she plays the role of household manager, the next week I play it, it would not be the case that the burden is equally shared because I would be much more burdened by my 50% than she is by her 50%. Because she's more suited to that than I am. Because I'm a man and she's a woman. And a lot of marriages are struggling and both spouses feel resentment and anger they don't even understand because they refuse to accept this basic truth. Because the culture has told them it isn't true. But it is. Men and women are different. And that's why your wife can and should be more emotionally vulnerable than you. It's unequal, yes. Well, men and women are unequal. And that's okay. Just as long as she doesn't use the term man-keeping, which is definitely not okay, because that term is today, once again, canceled. Hey YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.